Last year we spent a lot of time with rethinking and redesigning our backyard, but now that we've been through the whole year, we're kind of rethinking things again. We're actually thinking about redesigning the backyard again. We currently have 38 raised beds, but we know this section of the garden, which was our original part of the garden, just isn't working for us as it had in the very early years of gardening. So we're thinking about redoing this section here. And if you notice the buckets that go around, there's one way back in there. Keith planted 2 peach trees right there. A couple more buckets there and there. They actually make a circle. And the intention is to put the trees around in a circle and open up this middle here to do something more like a sitting area or a fire pit or something like that. So we're working on totally redesigning the backyard again. That will also include this area here. We have 4 long raised beds here and 2 4x4 beds back there. We're totally rethinking this area, and we're thinking about pulling out the wooden raised beds and putting in the Vego raised beds just like we have over here. We actually are pretty pleased with these Vego raised beds. They've worked out really well for us. So we're going to start pulling some of these beds out and put some of the Vego beds in this section of the garden. So it is October right now, so let me give you a 360 view of what the backyard garden looks like, and then I will give another 360 view in December so you guys can kind of see what the backyard is transitioning to. So the thought process is 38 raised beds was a lot for us this year, probably too much for us moving forward. So we're going to cut back on the number of raised beds we have, and we also want to incorporate into our garden some destination areas. So hopefully before summer comes next year, we'll have a nice change in this area. Alright, so Keith got these first 2 beds right here level. Now we're going to work on the next 2 beds. So these are a little bit bigger than the other ones that we actually have in the garden. These are now 3 feet across and 6 feet in length. Keith has gone ahead and leveled out those 2 beds now. So it's been a few months since the first set of beds have been put into this area of the garden. Keith has gone ahead and added the last 4 beds in the backside. In order to do that, he did have to take the raspberries out that were back in this area, but now we have a whole set of 8 beds in this section of the garden. We did go ahead and start planting in this garden. On this side over here, I have gone ahead and added in some of my onions. These are the Amaya yellow onions. And you can actually see some deer netting over the top. And the reason for that is just to keep the squirrels out, because they come into these little garden beds and start digging holes. These are the red shonen onions. We are overwintering our onions right now. And these are new for us this year. These are Texas granos that is in both of these 2 beds. I have a little bit of cabbage in this bed. I did lose some of the cabbage that I had planted earlier, but at least I have a couple starts in there. Nothing in this bed. And we have a little bit of dill going on over here. And the dill is doing really, really well. And again, this bed is an empty bed. You do see in the middle here of some of these beds are some worm bins that are really helping with the fertilization. But I really like how this section of the garden has transitioned. As I mentioned before, these beds are a little bit bigger than the beds that we have in this section of the garden. So the first thing that Keith has been doing is he has been transitioning the trees into these little small round raised beds. These little round raised beds are actually pickle barrels that have been cut down to make a little round raised bed. He's been placing them in this circle design, but we have not moved the actual wooden raised beds yet, but that is slowly being transitioned out of this section. So as you can see here, it's a little mix of both. The raised beds that are still there with some of the new trees that are going into this section. One more thing that you'll notice is around some of these citrus trees are these metal arched hoops. And the reason for that is Keith wants to protect some of these trees because some of these are citrus trees. They're either lime trees, lemon trees, there's kumquats in here. Because we are in zone 8A, we're not really zoned for some of these citrus trees. So Keith needs to go in and cover some of these citrus trees just to protect them throughout the winter season. So I'm going to do another 360 turnabout so you can see what the garden is starting to transition into. Keep in mind this is the winter, so we have some of these trees in that circle pattern that we were talking about are covered with frost protection. So we are not totally done in our transition in the backyard, but we are making progress. One more section in the garden that I absolutely love is the section that Keith is working on where the trellises are. As much as I love these trellises, we've actually decided to take these down because I needed to make more space in here for blueberries. We pulled out the raised beds that were in this area that had the big trellis here because we wanted to plant some blueberries. These are 4 different varieties of blueberries. I wanted to extend the number of blueberries that I had over here on the side of the house. I have 2 big blueberries there, and I actually have 3 blueberries down in this section. We have added in a Titan, a Cruer, a powder blue, and oh boy am I going to have a hard time with this, Ochakni, not sure I'm pronouncing that one right. We do still have one more bed here to pull out. This currently has some turnips in it, so we kind of left this for right now because the turnips are still in here doing pretty good. And a tiny bit of cilantro, but eventually this bed will come out. But we wanted this section here for a little bit of in-ground planting, possibly tomatoes here, we're not really sure, but we did want to open this up just a little bit in the backyard. So again, we're still in transition in the backyard, but so far we like how things are transitioning.